What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1963 Pontiac Bonneville Navy ambulance. Up front is a 6.4 liter V8, and down below is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Bonneville ambulance for two reasons. First of all, I always loved these older ambulances before they switched over to truck chassis. I always find them interesting to look at, and I love the look of this as well. But the second reason is the fact that this vehicle has significant cultural impact, not only in the world of cars, but in the world of politics here in the United States that we'll get into later on. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 6.4 liter V8 under the hood. Well, it's better known as the 389 cubic inch V8 from Pontiac, and it wasn't anything too special. It wasn't their biggest engine, it wasn't their smallest engine, it was just kind of somewhere in the middle, and of course it was used in the Bonneville, whether it was the ambulance or not. It is carbureted, of course. Not super happy to be moving here today, but it's moving at all, and so my cap is off to the V8. Like I said, paired to it is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Again, not happy to be functioning here today. It is leaking some of its fluid everywhere I go, but again, it's still functioning, and 3-speed automatics were pretty standard here in the 1960s, so nothing too new there. Last but not least about the Bonneville ambulance is, of course, the fact that it is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to drive the Pontiac ambulance? Well, it's actually very smooth. It bounces and floats over bumps way better than I ever thought it was going to be. Now, I have driven a 1964 Cadillac ambulance, and it honestly drives really similar to that, which I wasn't expecting. Pontiac was the more budget-oriented division of GM, and so I figured the suspension would feel that way, but it's not. The 6.4 liter is rather unbothered once you do start moving, and visibility is wonderful. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a very horizontal speedometer, along with the battery and fuel gauges. Down below that, we have our headlight switch, our wiper switch, gear selector, and our Pontiac heater. So the heater controls are right in front of you. Very interesting placement by modern standards, but actually back in the 1960s, most heater, and if you were lucky enough to have AC controls, were very towards the driver. So run-of-the-mill here for the 60s, but odd to see here today. Off to the left, we do have a spotlight slash searchlight. Very, very cool part of the ambulance. And moving on to the door, not much left of the door card. However, you would have cranks for the smoker's window and the regular window, and some type of door card. However, this has lost it in the last 61 years, which that's okay. Moving into the center, I do get a clock. However, this was an ambulance back in the 1960s, and so whatever company or hospital or actually naval base this was stationed at, they just put these labels over the clock because that was more important. And so this is really, really cool to see. This genuinely is history. What this stuff all means, I have no idea. Please leave a comment if you have any idea, but it's all very cool nevertheless. This isn't dressed up to look a certain way. This was from the 60s, and that's so cool to me. Down below that, we have our 12-volt outlet, our rear ventilation and fan, and front heat. But off to the right, we have this big Bonneville badge, which I absolutely love. And we have our badging for the US government, so that's proof that this was a naval ambulance and not the civilian one, which we'll talk about towards the end of the video. But also we have the Superior warranty, because this was coach built by the Superior company to become an ambulance. And that is their warranty. You can pause the video to read it if you would like, but very, very cool to see. I do have a pull-out ashtray that probably stopped pulling out as soon as Nixon got into office, so I can't show you, but it's there. And we don't have any cup holders, so unfortunately back in the 60s, if you were on call, you couldn't bring the big friggin' bottle with you. Now, obviously the seats are covered up by a blanket. However, these would be the factory seats underneath. They are very cushy and very bouncy and do not have any factory seat belts. So a lot of oldness going on there. However, a big part of the ambulance, of course, is the rear, So let's hop back there into the gunner seats and see what's what. All right, coming around the side of the ambulance, big, giant swinging door. I mean, absolutely huge. You could really clobber someone with that. But climbing inside here, we do have 2 jump seats, obviously 1 and 2. And then we have a bunch of our equipment. So I'll zoom in here so you can try to read what this stuff was. But I love this 1950s, 1960s style label machines when it actually it's embossed, I guess, or like raised lettering. So cool. I feel like I only see it in like war museums. Absolutely awesome stuff there. It would have 2 oxygen tanks sitting there. Obviously they've been removed over the years. But you can see oxygen unit, bottles, masks, oxygen catheter, disposable tubing, all of that stuff will go there in the center. Here is your spot for the gurney where your patient would be. Maybe Dr. 1, Dr. 2 would be sitting where I'm sitting, or nurse, or whoever was on the scene. Ceiling has obviously seen better days. That's okay. That is fiberglass hanging, which is, you know, cool. But some hooks for other tools and things like that. And we will go around the back. But like I said, just seeing that labeling is so cool. And it does have a straight pass-through to the driver's area. And coming over here, we have our heater controls and our vacuum. Very, very neat. Closing the door here. Coming around the back. The handle has since gone missing in the 61 years since it was built. So you gotta push it in and then pull with the other hand. And here is around the back of the 63 ambulance. So cool. So cool. Big giant door like that. Curved bumper to help the wheels of the gurney fold up. Really, really cool. Now we got to talk about the looks, and of course, I love the look of the Pontiac ambulance. I think it looks absolutely wonderful. It has been repainted, apparently, at some point in its life. However, as we'll talk about, this is the quote-unquote correct color for this ambulance. And overall, I just think that this thing is incredibly cool. It's incredibly awesome to look at, and something I learned is that they made 15 of the naval ambulances, but in total, they made 69 of them. And so, you could tell that actually because the top of this one is metal, where the civilian one had a fiberglass top. So, just a cool little piece of history about the Pontiac Bonneville ambulance. However, with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving this 1963 Pontiac Bonneville ambulance? Well, first of all, this whole experience is very, very cool. I mean, just driving an old ambulance like this, before they switched over to truck and more commercial chassis, this is what an ambulance was. I can't imagine how many people have gone through here with wounds and diseases and all of that stuff that were then later helped and cured. And of course, there were a couple that didn't make it out of the ambulance, but that's a part of the history too. All of that together would be cool enough for me to say, wow, this is an awesome car that I want to feature on the channel, and I would do so. However, this car's history goes deeper than that. Like I said, they only made 15 of these Navy ambulances. The differences were they were equipped a little bit differently, obviously sold to the US government and owned by the US government on Navy bases, and it had that different metal top, it had different lights, things like that. But while this isn't the exact one of this car's siblings, a 1963 Pontiac Bonneville Navy ambulance in this color, in this configuration, built on the same assembly line within just days, if not hours of this vehicle, was the vehicle chosen by Jackie Kennedy to drive JFK's body from Air Force One to Capitol Hill. And I'll show some images here. This is that exact car. One of the darkest times, one of the strangest times, one of the biggest tragedies of the 20th century. This car played a huge role in. And Jackie Kennedy actually specifically wanted this ambulance, even though it was against the code of ethics of the White House to have the body transported in this. You see, JFK was actually in the Navy in World War II. He fought in the Pacific Theater. And so when they needed to get the body from Air Force One to the White House, Jackie Kennedy wanted it to be in a Navy ambulance to honor her husband. And even though the White House said, that's against our policies, Jackie Kennedy said, and I quote, "You better forget that regulation." By this time, the press had been all over Washington, D.C., waiting for this moment, and this was the car that did it. And that is why I love cars so much. Because today, yes, this is a cool old car that most people probably wouldn't look at twice. But in all reality, it's a history lesson. It's a piece of our country's past, and a rather important one. Now, the whereabouts of the actual ambulance that carried the casket is somewhat unknown. Jackie Kennedy wanted it destroyed immediately after the casket was removed, of course. She didn't really get her wish. They apparently crushed it in the 1980s. There's pictures of it in a scrapyard being crushed. However, at Barrett-Jackson, one of these came up for sale not too long ago that actually had the proper serial number of the ambulance that carried the casket, and so it's raised this big question of, did they crush a duplicate? Did they crush the real one and the modern one's a duplicate? Someone trying to make a buck off of a tragedy? Who knows? But either way, I can confidently tell you that this is not JFK's ambulance, but it is one of the 15 ever to exist in this configuration. And that is cool enough for me. What a cool, awesome piece of American history. American automotive history. Right here. And that's why I got goosebumps while filming this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Matt and Al for letting me take out their 1963 Pontiac Bonneville ambulance. What an amazing, amazing piece. Matt and Al are absolutely wonderful human beings. I have reviewed so many of their cars in the past. They have their own YouTube channel called Wisco Shenanigans. I'm sure you'll see updates on this vehicle as well as all of their old vintage toys on there as well. So please go check them out. You won't regret it. They have a wonderful page. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.